For years, the world of K-pop has been filled with moments that last only a few seconds but somehow remain in the minds of millions of fans. A glance across a stage, a familiar gesture, a social media interaction, or even an outfit that looks strangely similar can become the beginning of a much larger conversation. Few examples illustrate this phenomenon better than the long-running speculation surrounding BTS's Jungkook and Blackpink's Lisa. The latest question circulating among fans is particularly intriguing. Could Jungkook actually be supporting Lisa from afar, without making that support obvious to the public? At first glance, the theory sounds almost impossible to prove. Jungkook and Lisa belong to different groups, operate under different professional environments, and have largely maintained their private lives away from public scrutiny. Yet that distance is precisely what makes the discussion so fascinating. Instead of pointing to one dramatic interaction, fans have spent years collecting small details and interpreting them as pieces of a much larger puzzle. But there is an important distinction between what fans believe and what can actually be verified. The Jungkook-Lisa conversation is not new. Their names have been connected by fans for years, particularly because both became famous as the youngest members of two of the world's biggest K-pop groups. Their shared 1997 birth year, strong dance abilities, enormous global popularity and status as standout performers helped create the fan-made pairing commonly known as Lis Cook or Liz Cook. Film daily. Over time, however, the theory evolved. It was no longer simply about whether the two idols might have a romantic connection. Some fans began proposing something more subtle. Perhaps Jungkook simply respects Lisa's career and quietly supports her achievements, just as fellow artists can admire one another without maintaining a public friendship. That interpretation is considerably more plausible than many of the romantic theories circulating online, but even this version has not been officially confirmed. One of the reasons the discussion continues is the existence of old footage that fans repeatedly revisit. During the 2018 SBS Gayo Daejeon, for example, a brief camera angle appeared to show Jungkook and Lisa looking toward each other. The moment quickly became a subject of fan discussion. Yet another camera angle suggested that Jungkook may actually have been looking upward toward a screen rather than directly at Lisa. Wow, Karen. That single example reveals the difficulty of interpreting K-pop footage. A few seconds can look meaningful when isolated from the surrounding context, especially when millions of people are already searching for connections. What appears to be a deliberate gesture from one angle can become an ordinary movement when viewed from another. And yet, fans continue to examine these moments. Why? Because fandom is not always driven by hard evidence alone. It is also driven by patterns, emotions, and curiosity. When two enormously popular idols appear to share even the smallest similarity, people naturally begin asking whether there is something behind it. That happened again in 2026 when social media users revived speculation after Jungkook and Lisa were associated with similar fashion choices. Reports described fan comparisons involving oversized hoodies, with some users calling the resemblance evidence of a possible connection. Others immediately pushed back, arguing that oversized hoodies are common fashion items and that similarities in clothing do not establish a relationship or even communication between two people. Inkle. Similar speculation has appeared around accessories. A ring worn by Jungkook was compared by some fans with one associated with Lisa, producing another wave of viral discussion. But again, there was no reliable evidence establishing that the items were connected. Critics pointed out that similar jewelry designs are extremely common, making the theory impossible to treat as proof. Money control. This is where the phrase supports Lisa from afar becomes particularly interesting. Support does not necessarily mean a public Instagram comment, a direct congratulatory message, or a visible interaction at an awards ceremony. Artists can admire each other's work privately, They can listen to each other's music, watch performances, recommend songs to friends, or simply respect another artist's achievements without ever publicly acknowledging it. The problem is that private support cannot be verified from the outside. That means fans may reasonably wonder whether Jungkook respects Lisa as an artist, but they cannot honestly claim to know what happens privately between them unless one of the artists confirms it. The distinction becomes even more important because the Jungkook-Lisa narrative has previously been surrounded by fabricated or misleading material. In 2023, a video purporting to show Jungkook and Lisa together circulated widely before fans identified it as an edited video combining separate footage. The incident demonstrated just how easily unrelated images can be transformed into apparently convincing evidence. Midday? This history explains why some fans now approach every new proof with greater caution. Still, the fascination has not disappeared. For supporters of the theory, the most compelling argument is not one particular photograph or video. Instead, it is the idea that two artists with remarkably parallel careers have continued to grow independently while occasionally being placed in the same conversations by fans. Jungkook became one of BTS's most recognizable solo performers, while Lisa developed an increasingly prominent global identity beyond Blackpink. Their careers have become powerful stories of individual ambition. That parallel alone can create the impression of an invisible connection. When Lisa reaches another international milestone, some fans naturally wonder how Jungkook might view it. When Jungkook achieves something significant, the same fans ask whether Lisa might have noticed. The imagined exchange is emotionally appealing because it creates a narrative in which two global stars understand one another from a distance. This is perhaps the most important point in the entire discussion. There is currently no verified public evidence demonstrating that Jungkook secretly supports Lisa in a personal or romantic sense. Recent reporting has repeatedly described the speculation as fan-driven and unsubstantiated, with neither side providing confirmation of a relationship. Film Daily. That does not mean Jungkook dislikes Lisa. It does not mean Lisa is unaware of Jungkook. It simply means the public does not possess enough information to know what their private relationship, if any, actually looks like. And perhaps that uncertainty is exactly why the story refuses to disappear. In an industry where every movement can be photographed, every outfit can be analyzed, and every social media action can become a headline, genuine privacy becomes increasingly difficult to distinguish from carefully constructed speculation. A simple glance becomes a theory. A similar hoodie becomes a clue. A ring becomes a symbol. A follow becomes a possible message. And suddenly, an ordinary moment becomes part of a story millions of people want to solve. The most responsible conclusion, therefore, is also the most intriguing one. Fans can discuss the possibility that Jungkook admires or supports Lisa from afar, but they should recognize that this remains an interpretation rather than an established fact. Perhaps there really is nothing more than professional respect between two artists who happen to share extraordinary careers. Perhaps they have spoken privately over the years. Perhaps they have encouraged each other in ways the public will never see. Or perhaps the entire narrative exists primarily because fans are fascinated by what happens when two global stars remain almost completely silent about each other. Until Jungkook or Lisa chooses to reveal something themselves, the missing pieces will remain missing. And that is why the question continues to attract attention. Not because there is definitive proof hiding in a photograph, a hoodie, a ring, or a few seconds of video, but because the silence leaves room for endless interpretation. For now, the strongest evidence points not to a confirmed secret relationship or proven private support, but to a fascinating example of how K-pop fandom can turn tiny coincidences into enormous stories. Whether Jungkook truly supports Lisa from afar is something only Jungkook himself could definitively answer. Until then, the mystery remains exactly what it has always been, a question hanging between fact, possibility, and the imagination of millions of fans. The more fans try to separate fact from speculation, the more complicated the Jungkook and Lisa story seems to become. What began years ago as a simple fan pairing has repeatedly returned to the spotlight, revived by new social media posts, old footage, and coincidences that some fans believe deserve a second look. Yet there is another interpretation emerging from the discussion, one that is less dramatic than a secret romance, but perhaps more realistic. What if the connection fans keep searching for is simply admiration between two artists who understand what it means to stand at the center of global attention? That possibility has become interesting again in 2026. The names Jungkook and Lisa recently resurfaced together after Jungkook's social media activity triggered another wave of speculation. Reports noted that his following activity led fans to revisit several old theories, including the long-running Jungkook narrative. The timing was particularly noticed because the renewed discussion appeared around Lisa's birthday, causing some fans to interpret the moment as potentially meaningful. However, reporting also emphasized that the dating rumors remain unsubstantiated and that there has been no official confirmation connecting the two romantically. Pop rant. For some fans, however, the question has changed. They are no longer asking only, are Jungkook and Lisa secretly together? Instead, they are asking something far more subtle. Could Jungkook simply be someone who supports Lisa's career without making it public? That question is difficult to disprove because private admiration leaves almost no visible footprint. An artist does not need to publicly mention another artist every time they respect their work. They do not need to stand beside them at an event or post congratulations on social media. Sometimes support exists quietly, outside the cameras. And that is where the mystery becomes almost impossible to solve. One of the most frequently revisited pieces of fan discussion came from 2025, when Jungkook's Instagram activity was interpreted by some fans as potentially connected to Lisa's dream project. He shared songs around the time Lisa's release was receiving attention, and fans immediately began examining lyrics, timing, and imagery for possible connections. Some believed the posts were subtle messages, while others considered the interpretation nothing more than coincidence. Koreaboo. This is a perfect example of how the Jungkook-Lisa narrative works. The event itself is real. Jungkook shared music. Lisa's release was real. The timing was real. But the conclusion that one was a message directed toward the other remains interpretation. That difference may seem small, but it changes everything. In the world of celebrity fandom, timing can feel like evidence. If two events happen close together, people naturally search for a connection. Once the possibility enters the conversation, every subsequent detail begins to look like confirmation. A song becomes a message. A lyric becomes a confession. A photograph becomes a clue. A piece of jewelry becomes a symbol. And silence itself can even become evidence, because fans begin asking why neither person has addressed the speculation. This phenomenon has followed Jungkook and Lisa for years. Even matching accessories have repeatedly generated viral discussions. In 2025, fans circulated claims that a ring worn by Jungkook resembled one associated with Lisa. The theory gained significant attention online, but other fans rejected it, arguing that similar jewelry does not establish a relationship. Money control. The same pattern appeared again in 2026 when fans compared oversized hoodies allegedly worn by the two stars. The images spread across social media, with some users calling the similarity suspicious and others insisting that matching clothing is hardly proof of anything. International Business Times UK. And this is where the story takes an unexpected turn. The more evidence appears, the more obvious it becomes that the strongest evidence may actually be the absence of definitive evidence. There has been no publicly confirmed collaboration between Jungkook and Lisa. There has been no official announcement describing a close personal relationship. There has been no verified statement from either artist saying that they secretly communicate or support each other's careers. Instead, there are fragments. And fragments are powerful because people can arrange them into almost any story. For fans who already believe there is something special between them, the fragments appear connected. For skeptics, the same fragments are ordinary coincidences being transformed into a narrative by social media. Both groups can look at exactly the same photograph and reach completely different conclusions. That is why the story refuses to die. There is also something psychologically fascinating about the comparison itself. Jungkook and Lisa occupy remarkably similar positions within the K-pop industry. Both became internationally recognized while still young. Both were the youngest members of two of the most influential groups in modern K-pop. Both became known not only for their group performances, but also for their individual identities. Their careers developed in parallel without actually being the same. Jungkook became increasingly recognized as a global solo performer while remaining deeply associated with BTS. Lisa expanded her identity as a Blackpink member into a powerful solo career with an increasingly international profile. To fans watching both journeys, the similarities can feel almost cinematic. Two stars, two groups, two enormous fan bases, two careers developing on different roads, and occasionally the same headline. Perhaps that is why the idea of distant support feels so emotionally satisfying. It does not require a secret relationship. It does not require hidden meetings or dramatic revelations. It simply imagines two artists quietly recognizing each other's success. But even that interpretation must remain an interpretation. Recent coverage continues to describe the Jungkook-Lisa connection as fan-driven speculation rather than confirmed reality. One 2026 report noted that the rumors have repeatedly resurfaced through social media clips, accessories, and other supposed clues, while emphasizing that neither artist has confirmed the romantic narrative. Film Daily. That distinction should not make the story less interesting. In fact, it makes it more intriguing. Because perhaps the real story is not about discovering a secret. Perhaps it is about understanding why millions of people continue searching for one. K-pop has created an environment where fans can observe artists at an extraordinary level of detail. Performances are recorded from countless angles.